Now Teppei is in his studio, recalling the way he met Itsuki Aino and how he wanted to tell her the truth, but now he is the only one who can bring White Knight to the world. Now that he is a professional, he is in a constant battle against time. In just 7 days, he must complete a new chapter for his readers. And that's why Munaka will introduce Teppei to a group of skilled assistants who will help him with White Knight. The first one is Genki Akaishi, an energetic guy eager to become an assistant for such an incredible manga. Then comes Jiro Yamane, a chief assistant with plenty of experience under his belt. Next is Hajime Igarashi, a reserved individual who has already debuted with a one-shot. And finally, Itsuki Aino, the author of White Knight in 10 years, who promises she will help him improve the story they both were writing at the same time. Upon seeing her, Teppei freezes and loudly asks what she is doing in his studio. Muneoka reveals that he posted an ad for an assistant on the internet and quickly found her. Inwardly, Teppei is nervous again. He never expected to meet her again so soon. Suddenly, Jiro asks Itsuki what she meant by drawing the same manga, and she casually reveals that she was working on a story with the same title and concept as Teppei's. But Genki joins in, calling her a liar and refusing to believe someone else could create such a masterpiece. The two glare at each other with hostility, creating tension in the room as Jiro tries to calm them down. Teppei steps in and asks Itsuki if she is serious about becoming his assistant. Itsuki doesn't hesitate and confirms her wish with a proud face, unwilling to leave the only person who resembles her. But in a second, she shifts completely, her expression turning gloomy, admitting she felt frustrated upon seeing how much better Teppei's version of White Knight was. But even then, as someone who thinks like him, she feels responsible for using all her strength to support him. She wants to train under Teppei's guidance in order to create something far greater than White Knight. Genki jumps at her again, telling her to stop saying disrespectful things to Teppei, while Itsuki yells at him for being rude to her. They keep bickering, and Genki starts doubting if she's really an assistant since it seems she still goes to school. Itsuki admits she quit to move to Tokyo, worrying Teppei. Suddenly, Muneoka interrupts them, saying he'll show everyone Itsuki's work. Everyone reads through the pages, amazed by their content. Even Genki can't hide his admiration. They start calling her a prodigy, but what surprises Teppei the most is how quickly they accept her into the group. Muneoka concludes by saying that Itsuki is a future talent for Shonen Jump, and now everything is in Teppei's hands. Teppei gazes at her with some sadness. He wanted to reveal the truth, but didn't have the courage. Maybe she would have stopped drawing manga after learning it. But those thoughts vanish when Itsuki extends her hand to him, happy to work for someone like him. Teppei feels the same and decides to keep hiding the secret, knowing this way she'll keep moving toward her dream. For now, he must start working. He will handle the characters and the main portions of the scenes, while the assistants will work on the backgrounds and touch-ups. At this point, Itsuki is very good, but upon checking the future volumes, he knows how incredible she'll become in 10 years. No matter how hard he tries, all his drawings feel like cheap imitations of the original work. He gets frustrated and crumples his sketches. He sees it as disrespect toward the future Itsuki. For an instant, he considers making Itsuki draw the manga, but the idea is absurd. She would have to read the future manga and then recreate it with 10 years less experience, and she probably wouldn't want to do that. Teppei discards the thought and decides to take full responsibility. He will have to bring White Knight to life and push his art as close as possible to the real volumes. 3 weeks pass, and there are only 19 days left until the first chapter's deadline. The 4 assistants are heading to Teppei's studio, with Itsuki and Genki arguing as usual. Upon opening the door, they realize how hot the studio is, and despite that, Teppei doesn't seem bothered at all. It's so hot that their popsicles melt in seconds. Jiro approaches Teppei and tries to bring him back to reality, startling him. He was immersed in his pages. Jiro asks how the manga is going. They should already be starting on the backgrounds for the character art. However, Teppei admits that he hasn't finished a single page yet, shocking everyone except Jiro, who remains calm and asks what happened. Teppei explains that he already drew the 54 pages, but the art is far from top quality, so he is redoing everything. Genki and Jiro start reading the pages scattered on the floor and can't help but compliment his style. But for Teppei, it's still not enough. He can't show those pages to readers. Teppei drops to the floor and begs them to let him redraw everything, despite the deadline being so close. Genki is moved by his words, and with fire in his eyes, he promises to stay with him until he finishes. Itsuki is still unsure about Teppei's decision, but Genki believes that with guts, he'll make it through. However, Hajime points out that guts alone can't magically solve their problems. He cannot miss the deadline, especially for the first chapter of his series. Suddenly, Jiro proposes the perfect solution. He tells everyone to draw the backgrounds first using the unsatisfactory version of White Knight, and then combine everything digitally with Teppei's polished character art. He estimates they could meet the deadline if Teppei finishes in 10 days. All the assistants praise Jiro's idea. After all, he used to work as a chief assistant. Teppei is so touched that he can't help but cry and thank them. The assistants remind him they are a team and want to work as hard as he is right now. 10 days pass, and everyone is amazed at the final pages drawn by Teppei. He finally feels like he's honoring the original work by Itsuki Aino. He asks Itsuki what she thinks about his final drawings, catching her off guard. With a smile, she tells him they are great, practically perfect. However, Teppei feels something is still off. Upon receiving the pages from Itsuki's hands, he feels he's still too far from the real art and tears them apart in front of his stunned assistants. Teppei stands there over the torn pages, shouting that he's still too far, while his assistants can't believe they are only 9 days away from the deadline and still don't have a single finished page. Genki is the first to speak, asking why Teppei is destroying his work. Teppei keeps tearing the pages, saying the art is still not good enough. Genki tries to bring him back, insisting that everyone thought it was already perfect. Even Itsuki said so. Teppei grabs Itsuki and begs her to be completely honest with him. Deep down, he feels responsible for taking care of what she was meant to draw in the future. He feels that way because he essentially stole the actual manga from his own timeline. Teppei asks her again if his work was truly good enough, telling her she can be brutally honest. Itsuki puts on a big smile, blaming herself for being a bad liar. She feels happy, certain that she and Teppei are alike, and that he saw through her false praise. Suddenly, Munoka enters the studio holding a bag of takoyaki, eager to check the character art. He knew Teppei wanted to redraw everything, but since they are still on schedule, he sees no problem. He asks where the material is, and Genki points at a mountain of torn pages. Munoka yells in shock upon seeing the manga completely shredded, demanding to know what happened. Teppei doesn't flinch and again asks to redraw all the character art, but Munoka refuses. Teppei pleads, but Munoka reminds him there are only 9 days left until the deadline and that the pages are already more than perfect. Teppei bows, asking for one last chance. His drawings are still missing something, and until he figures it out, he can't give White Knight to the readers. Against his better judgment, Munoka accepts, but sets one condition. Teppei must figure out what his art is missing by 6 o'clock in the morning. If he fails, they will use the first draft, the one he's least satisfied with, and send it to print. Teppei agrees to the deal, promising to give his all. Once alone in the studio, Teppei decides to photocopy the real issue of the future Shonen Jump and trace it. Hours pass, but even after doing that, he still dislikes the results. The drawings have no soul. They're just hollow imitations. At that moment, there's a knock at the door. When Teppei opens it, he sees Itsuki and asks why she's there so late. She tells him she came to say he was a bird, leaving him confused. Itsuki explains that he's like a bird flying freely, tied to nothing. After that, she wishes him good luck before turning to leave. Teppei calls out, asking her directly what his version of White Knight is missing. She turns with a smile, wondering why he's asking her that. Teppei gets nervous and says it's because her drawings of White Knight were amazing, and that he also thinks they're two of a kind, making her happy. However, Itsuki says she doesn't have an answer. After all, this work is Teppei's White Knight. She admits she originally thought she could become his assistant just because they were making something similar and that her opinions could improve the story. But after watching him work diligently, she realized White Knight belongs to Teppei. She appreciates his concern but tells him to focus on his own ideas. Itsuki ends by saying he should draw White Knight the way he feels is right, in order to make a manga that truly suits him. Hearing those words, Teppei remembers how he felt when drawing the one-shot. He wanted to create something that could entertain as many people as possible. He finally breaks free from the cage he put himself in and thanks Itsuki for helping him find his way. She replies with a smile, excited to see Teppei's version of White Knight. The hours pass as Teppei keeps working, thinking about how Itsuki's words made him realize he's been trying to replicate her style all this time. But he isn't Itsuki, he's Teppei, and if he wants to continue drawing White Knight, he'll have to do it in his own style. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.